country, people can also gravitate to those areas as well.
One of the best ways to do that is the construction of rail.
Even
So
as it is,
that's why I answered that question. So when people say build ports in the east, the only way you can build ports in the east is by building dry ports. You understand? You connect most of the important economic zones by rail to where you have deep ports. You understand? You can have your Lagos port, build dry ports in Ibadan, in Abeokuta, in Ilorin, in all this area. Also in the east, you can build dry port everywhere. So the thing is, Nigeria really we need to open up. What we are fighting over is just like we are fighting over scrum. You understand? So the money is not enough, and all of us we are fighting, want to get involved in this. As Emma clearly stated, Lagos is even too small for the population that it has to host because of the dysfunctioning in so many other parts.
And it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse.
Yes.
It's gonna get worse.
Build this massive infrastructure, build dry ports in most of these places, and allow people to move. So why are people moving to Lagos when we have Ibadan? We have so many other towns, so many other cities in Nigeria. It's because of the infrastructure bottleneck. People cannot function in the states, in the state capitals of other states. And that's why they are moving to Lagos.
And the fear I have for the future is that if we don't check this now, it's going to create a situation where in the future, the Southwest, which has now become an experiment in all comers come and be, it's going to create a resentment amongst the people who are indigenous to that area because the demographics of that area is also changing.
Exactly. It will be diluted. It will be diluted.
So how is that right?
Another thing we're not
because we don't think. So our problem is that we don't think critically. We don't look at what are the 100 years or 200 years implications of our policies right now. So those are things that we don't really analyze. And you're very right, because at the end of the day, the indigenes may eventually now become minorities. Yeah, they're not, because the population will be heavily diluted. And so that is part of the reason why some of us believe that okay.
Sorry to interject, but that has already happened. I mean, the indigenes of Lagos are already the minority.
No, Olufemi. So what we're saying is that
may happen.
No, Olufemi, what we're saying is that if you look at the current trend, so we're trying to look at it from the lens of predictive analysis. That if the current trend continues as it were, till maybe the next 50, 100 years, then we already know that it is bad. But then,
it's not
have that responsibility. Sorry, where are you now have that responsibility to mitigate? To mitigate the impending disaster.
No, it's not an impending disaster. Look, two things. Number one, the trend has already happened. Lagosians, I'm a Lagosian. We have been a minority from the 1980s. I remember me being able to go to college, to university, just because I was, as a Lagosian, as a native Lagosian, I was considered a minority. And so we got, what's this that we are always arguing about now? Affirmative.
Quota system.
Quota system. It was quota system that made me as a Lagosian be able to attend medical school in University of Lagos, because none of us would get into it. So it's already there. I entered medical school in 84. So we are already a minority. As at 84, Lagosians were considered less than.
Sorry,
I mean, Lagos.
You mean catchment area? You mean catchment area?
No. I'm talking not catchment area. I'm talking quota system.
Sorry,
Lagosian. No, I'm from Isaleko. Native Nigerians, the native Lagosians, as at the 1980s, were already a minority in Lagos State. That was a fact. So what we are talking about has already happened. That's already done and over with. If you look at anywhere in Lagos now, most of the people that claim to be Lagosians, even amongst the Yorubas, are not really from Lagos State. Most of them are from Njenje or Abeokuta, from Ogun State.
But that is what Emma just said. That now snowballing
No. My point is
snowballing into Oyo. So in the next 50 years, Lagos and Ogun will be like Lagos, and we don't want it to be like that.
No. Let me finish. You got to let me finish. Okay. Who's somebody? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So it has already happened, and the reality on ground is that in any place where there is advancement, that's going to happen. It's happened even in the US. The whites are no longer the majority in this country. They're still a majority, but the fastest growing minority group in this country are the Hispanics. So there's a dynamic that's taking place all over the world in any advancing country. And one of the ways in which we mitigate from that becoming a disaster is to take away this whole sense of state of origin. We got to get rid of that, because as our population grows and as we mix with each other, that sense of state of origin is going to deprive people of a sense of fairness. Because in states where in places where are more cosmopolitan, in places where there are more diverse populations, if you cling on to that sense of a state of origin, you are going to disenfranchise other people who are not necessarily the natives of that place, but have stayed there long enough to have established roots there.
Sorry,
Sorry to cut you short.
Yeah?
You kept referring to natives. Who are the natives of
So
Lagos?
what I'm saying is this. If you have, okay, I'll give you an example like Lagos State now. When I was in school, the person who got first in Yoruba was an Igbo boy.
No, that's what I'm saying. I said, who are the natives of Lagos State? Because you referred to
of course, they are Warris. They are Warris are natives of Lagos State. They are Warris were the original inhabitants of Lagos. They Igbo. Yes.
Sorry, the Aworis are the earliest settlers.
Yes.
The Egon people are not even Yoruba to begin with. You see, this whole thing about Lagos State is a modern construct, quite recent construct. There is no such thing as Ogun State. There is no such thing as Lagos State. The land was just there, and people inhabited it.
Although I don't know where your history from, but sorry.
No, I'm serious. Lagos State is a recent construct. It's not something you would find.
No. Look, you can't tell me this is what I know. You know, someone.
Oh, you mean Lagos?
Allah is right.
I'm saying Lagos State. You weren't probably listening well. Lagos State, the whole idea of state, Ogun State, those things are recent constructs. There is no such thing as Lagos State. But Oyinbo dé tá ṣe ní system tiwa. Tá ṣe ní system mi bá ṣe ń ṣe Lagos State.
No.
There's
a splitting here, or rather.
Because
this
I wanted to explain.
There's a continuity.
That's not the only thing I'm going to say, and then mute my mic and think I've made a point.
No. The same way, someone from that can say that's not like Anambra State. Somebody from Oyo State can say that's not like Oyo State. We had region.
I'm getting somewhere. Would you allow me to get there?
Finish your point.
So I'm saying
that cannot work because look at it from the.
Sorry, let him finish. Let Ola finish.
Okay, sorry.
So what I'm saying is that the land was there, fine, no problem. People were there, nobody's arguing. I'm saying the whole idea of state is not what is not there. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because where we now call Lagos State is a delineation that was now recently marked, and people have been on this new delineation for thousands of years. So our worries are the dominant people that occupy most of that land. Ijebu people did not just come here after the creation of Lagos State. Some Ijebus today are predominantly found in the new construct called Ogun State. But for many thousands of years, those Ijebu people have been living side by side the Aworis before the creation of what is called Lagos State. So those Ijebu you find in Lagos State today, for example, the Remons of Ikorodu, they didn't come here after the creation of Lagos State. Those Ijebus you find in Lekki, they didn't come here after Lagos State has been created. They've been here for centuries on that land. So when the whole idea of Lagos State came and the map was drawn, that land of Lagos State, wherever they are indigenous Aboriginal people of that place. The Aworis, who are the most dominant, they are also the indigenous Aboriginal people of the area where they reside. So that's the point I was making when I said Lagos State is a recent construct. People have been there. There are Ijebu people there. So I'm not saying there are no new Ijebu people migrating to Lagos maybe for work today. Of course, we have such people. But I'm saying in this area called Lagos State today, those people you find in Ikorodu who are Ijebus of Remo origin, I mean, there are Aworis even in Ikorodu, and I'm one of them. Aworis, all those coastal area of Ikorodu, you find Aworis. Aworis are spread all over the place in where we call Lagos State today, even extending to parts of Ogun State. But I'm just emphasizing that within that place called Lagos State.
Ola, the way you're saying this history is sweet.
There are aboriginal people of where we call Lagos State today who are also Ijebu by ethnicity of, let's say, subgroup. And those are the realm of Ikorodu. Those are the people of Ekwe or those Lekki side. But our Warriors are the dominant people. The construct of Lagos came there to meet them. The construct of Lagos State, sorry.
What about the Igbo people?
Wait, let me just add to what the last so yes, you're right. And another important point is this: the Aworis actually only settled in Saleko, so what we refer to as Lagos Island. And like Ola said, the modern construct of Lagos, you can't say that the Aworis were the ones who basically settled in all parts of Lagos State. So Lekki was actually under the Ijebu Kingdom, which was literally a land that was preoccupied by Ijebu people. So you cannot then say that the Aworis were the ones who owned Lekki, for instance. And even this idea that the Benin people or the Benin Kingdom somehow created Lagos is also a false narrative, even though, yes, it was annexed under the Benin Empire, but it wasn't the entire modern construct of Lagos.
1 minute.
Yeah, so
if you guys are rewriting, but please.
I wanted to say something about the Aworis.
Listen,
Actually, I want to
listen. People are making assertions about Lagos that you do not even know anything about. So if you do not understand or know Lagos, just keep those histories to yourself, because you cannot tell somebody his own history. I'm from Salem. If you look at that last name, I belong to the ruling house in Lagos. I know the history of Lagos. So when people come and you guys are saying stuff that you do not know about, be careful, because for me it riles me up, just like, because you don't know about this stuff. So someone is coming here and talking so fluently about all of these things that I lived it. I know my people's history. So do not come and start saying stuff about Awori, saying stuff about Ijebu, that Lekki is Ijebu, and all of those things. I do not even know anything about it. Lagos, do not even, but I understand what you're saying about Lagos State. A lot of what we call Lagos State today was actually part of the Western Union, was part of the Western region. Ikorodu was part of the Western region. When Lagos was created as a state, it was added onto Lagos State. So when you make some of these assertions, you have to be careful about it, because somebody like me,
Sorry, Olufemi, Western region is a modern construct, right?
No, listen. So, because we start talking now, so when you start saying, then someone comes here and starts saying that, something about the Benin people and they don't know about it. Of course, the lineage, which is my lineage, we trace it to the Benin people. Have you heard of Olubukutere of Lagos? We know our history. So
who is about
history that we do not know about?
Tell me about
but that's not even what we are talking. That's not even what we are talking about. So let us just go off.
You are not getting your point. So you are from Lagos.
You are not giving us any. Let me finish my point.
You are not giving us any new information.
Let me finish my point. I'm not giving you any news. Just let me finish my point. But the point that we are making, we've gone off on a tangent, and I just had to say that to bring us back to where we're talking about. We're talking about the fact, and this is why I'm talking about that. Lagosians are already a minority. I mean, those who are indigenous to Lagos are already a minority, and I don't have any problem with that. There are other fellow Lagosians like me that do not agree with what I'm saying, but I can tell you that, and I gave you my own example, that I got to we are such a minority that I was able to get to the University of Lagos as on a quota system, not even based upon anything within Lagos itself. But that's something by the side. But what I'm saying is that if we continue along these lines, if we're going to progress as a nation, and that's what I'm coming to, I'm not even interested in all of this little side talks we're talking about. If we're going to progress as a nation, what is more important? We should start seeing ourselves as belonging to a particular area that you belong to, not based upon your ancestry necessarily.
No.
But based
I beg to differ. Let me
finish now.
No.
I beg to differ, Olufemi.
Will you let me finish what I'm saying? Let me finish. But based upon your length, your residency, That's what happens in the US. You live in a place in the US for 6 months, you become a resident of that state. You are applied.
Yeah, but kill the US, they shake
but now that same US, black people have been in US for more than 400 years now.
Sorry,
that same US,
you can't even compare US.
Fucking the US, they shake
Sorry, US is a settled. Wait now,
but
US
they
is a
black people to go back to Africa. It doesn't US. They see black people to go back to Africa.
US is a settled colony. It was settled by the whites. Wait now. You said initially, you said whites are. Wait now. You said white are.
I will tell you the reason why Timothy saw Kini. I understand. Me, Nigeria, one of the problems we have in Nigeria is that if you are in the civil service in Nigeria and you are in a place where you are not, your parents are not from, or you are not necessarily, you have a different name, you can only progress so far. After a particular stage you are in the civil service, your state of origin becomes an issue. You cannot get any further. Lagos State is one of the few states that does not implement that so aggressively. But go to other states, you cannot go any further. And some people have lived in those communities for years. They are third generation living in that community. Yet, when it is time for those people
Sorry, okay.
Saulu, are you there? We can't hear you. Can you hear me? Is that the other song?
Can I go on?
Franchise within the nation that you want to call your own. That's it. There are many people that are Igbos that are third generation Igbos in Lagos. I know third generation Igbos in Ogun State. I know third generation Igbos personally that speaks better Yoruba than I do, that grew up in Ibadan. But yet, because they have that Igbo sounding name, they can only get so far within the civil service in the country. They can only get so far within certain businesses, and that is done. And it goes both ways. I'm talking about stuff in the West because I'm obviously from the West. But it's the same thing in the South. It's the same thing in the North. If we have to progress as a society, we have to start getting beyond that.
Sorry, let me just add this thing. Wait now, let me add this. See, I was born in the North. I have been there for all my life. You understand? The thing is it's the way you see yourself. So let me give you one example now. As a Northerner, as a Yoruba man, if you were born in the North, you dress like a Northerner. You tend to whatever thing they do, you support whatever thing they do, and you totally assimilate into the system. They start seeing you as one of them. And that is why state of origin is very, very important. So you made mention of America. So United States of America is a settled colony. So the white people you thought that are aboriginal or they are indigenous to the land, they are not indigenous to the land. They came there, they directly or indirectly massacred the indigenous people and they settled in that land. So the way they will see themselves and the way they see citizenship is different from a country where the indigenous people who have been there for thousands of years.
Exactly, from Germany, differently from Germany, from Poland, from France.
Yes. So the thing now is this. Let me give you one example. If I'm an Igbo man in Lagos and I've been living in Lagos for so long, and I still go back to my home every Christmas, I see myself as Igbos. I promote or I tend to Igbo thing, whatever thing that promotes Igbo culture or Igbo way of life, I still promote it. So what do you think? Do you think it would be okay for me to claim citizenship of Lagos and become representing Lagos in the House of Assembly or in the House of Senate? Where when we are talking about issues of Yorubas, I'm not going to support it. I will still support what will interest Igbos in this entity called Nigeria. You understand me? So that is.
Can I come in here, please?
No, let me just round up. It is important. We cannot do it with state of origin, especially in a country like Nigeria. State of origin is important because we still see ourselves to be our ethnic group. Our ethnic group is our nation.
Exactly. We are similar like Europe. So when you want to use the same case of Nigeria, cite Europe and don't cite America, because America is an immigrant state. So compare apples with apples, not apple with orange.
Mr. Olu, even in America here,
America is not a
indigenous people even have their privileges above.
Exactly, they have reservations and all those things.
The 10,000 generation white person here. The indigenous people have privilege that you don't even have as a white person that is not indigenous. So
even the black people that have been living in America for more than 400 years ago, the white people tell them
you can't erase people's indigenous identity.
At all, you can't. That is who we are. You can't
in America, they recognize it. In fact, we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day here in America. You are compelled to celebrate it. I mean, not like they will come to your house, but then
exactly, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and then they get those privileges. So what are we saying? Mr. Day,
sorry, Mr. Day, before you go on, maybe you can reset the room. I came up because I had some things. I just want to understand what we're discussing. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think the topic is quite clear. We're discussing about Lagos and indigenous people, how some people have been peddling the narrative of no man's land, and people have dealt with that to say, yeah, Lagos belongs to Yoruba people. And we just responding like it's popcorn, reacting to each other's points and all that.
Well, the first point I wanted to make is that let's stop putting an S behind Yoruba and making it plural. That is a bastardization of our language. Yoruba need plural tense. We don't have these things. If we want to describe something in its plurality, we qualify it with a word in front of the word itself. So, but when people say Yoruba and put an S in preference, things like Yorubas, it is such an ugly distortion of our language. So please, let's just stop that practice. It is terrible for people who want to reclaim our culture. Also, as the Mara said down in Mawanshi, we say things like Oni of Ife, or like remove the off. It's not a Yoruba word. You are Oni Ife. Now you're talking. Anyway, so Mr. Olufemi, whenever you try to talk along the lines of anything that's even sound remotely like you want to erase our ethnic identity, you are going to be met with strong resistance. Because we're at a moment in time when people are reclaiming what it means to be Yoruba, in different regards, and we are reclaiming our land to preserve our culture and things like that. This whole thing of state of origin and rotating presidency from one region to another, all these things are necessary band-aids. They don't heal the wound, and the wounds can never be healed because we have natural ethnic fault lines. People keep ignoring that. And when you go to Europe, you don't see the French and the German and the Spaniards forcing themselves to the same country, because if they did, they would also have to rotate the presidency. And why is that? Because people naturally want their way of life, their culture, their value systems to permeate their governance. So when you put different people with different politics and different way of thinking, different way of life into the same political space, you are going to end up with nepotism. And nepotism will breed corruption. And that is the core problem of Nigeria. So, today we are moving away from the politics of amalgamation that's been forced upon us, or even of the Nigerian state. We are saying that at the very least, we must have regional autonomy in governance. And people need to begin to respect that Yoruba land is Lagos. Well, here's my question from Mr. Ola. Well, I agree with you that Yoruba land, as it is, Lagos State, as it is currently construed, was not what it was 500 years ago. But would you agree? They came in waves. Some came, and they came in waves, and they also came into different parts of what we now call Lagos. Some came and they went to Mr. Leko, like Mr. Lufemi said, I want worry. But then I want Ijebu, right? When around what frame did they come to settle in what we now call Lagos? Because I think they came at different points in history, right? So you cannot compare their worries. So I've been in Lagos. I mean, you can't compare those guys to Awotowasi Eko later, maybe hundreds of years later. So, can you explain or can you explore that area for us, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so Mr. Ade, I worried myself. That's Ibishi. So I was listening to Mr. Olufemi when he was saying, let people of Lagos. Omo Ekonimi, my paternal great-grandmother is the daughter of Oba Kosoko Morofolu. So you now know. You were talking about Kutere. Now I'm responding to Mr. Olufemi. Kutere doesn't even have anything to do with Benin. Maybe on the mother side too, For father side, go and trace it. Go and ask this thing I'm saying. You go back to Elisha through Alagba. So that's on the side. So you are not the only one from Lagos. Awuri, Nimi, Ikorodu. The what's it called now? The coastal areas are Awuri, but the hinterland of Ikorodu are dominated by Remos. So when I said Awuris, I made it clear that Awuri is the earliest settler. In fact, most people think island area in the Konlowa, Unshebel. When they came to Lagos, Olofin family, according to the Lagos tradition of the Awori people, they left from Ile-Ife, and where they first settled, Olongpeni, Isheri, Olofin. It's somewhere situated along that bank of
exactly.
River. So Ogun River, in fact, the reason why it is called Ogun River today, from where the name Ogun State took its name, was after the man called Ogun Fuminire. So, and there are songs to that amongst our people that we know. So, Ogun Fuminire ló sọ pé òun ṣe àwọn ètùtù kan tí ìtò gba ibi ọ̀dọ̀ òun yẹn fi kún dáadáa ipò omi yẹn ọ̀pọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn tó yẹn tẹ́lẹ̀. So anyways, they settled in Ìṣẹ̀rí Ọlọ́fin. So from Ìṣẹ̀rí Ọlọ́fin, they spread wọ́n fọ́n ká sí gbogbo orí ilẹ̀ ibi tá à ń pè ní Lagos State lẹ́nu, even beyond the Lagos State. So wọ́n wá sí side even Ikorodu on this extreme. On lost side, on Badagry on that extreme. When you go to Ojo, you find Awori is there. Tabatin lost on Badagry and then lost on Ibi Egunlong here. One funka is not only on the island, one funka all over the spread all over Lagos State. But the main wave when they came to Ìṣẹ̀rí Ọlọ́fin, from Ìṣẹ̀rí Ọlọ́fin they moved a huge wave to Ido, and then from Ido, one own island to one next to it, the island opposite Ido Island called Eko. But then they are found in almost all parts of Lagos State. So it's not the correct narrative to say they're only found in that one cluster of island. If you go take a bus from a BRT bus from say Jibo, you are going to Ikorodu, you will find Awori, one of the bus stop there. In fact, the late Olofin of Ìṣẹ̀rí Ọlọ́fin that just passed, they came to select him somewhere around Ikorodu in settlement Awori Towa. And he's the king of Ìṣẹ̀rí Ọlọ́fin, even though he just passed and someone is a new king now. And that's the primary Awori kingdom anywhere in the world. So Ìṣẹ̀rí Ọlọ́fin. So then from Ìṣẹ̀rí Ọlọ́fin, Ido and all that. So when I said Ijebu people have been in Remo people, Ijebu Remo have been in Ikorodu and Lekki and all those, I am not saying they are earlier than the Aworis. The Aworis have been there before anyone until you occupy most of the land. Maybe there are some vacant land that they didn't occupy. In fact, when the Aworis came, they weren't trying to occupy a place called Lagos State because there was no such thing. They were just spreading across land, and they are in Ogun State. So the whole idea of later, other people came there. Maybe the Lekki people have been there for centuries too, in the Lekki, the place called Lekki. But I can't remember any tradition that says Awori settled in Lekki, that particular land. I don't know of any traditions like that. In Ikorodu, on the other extreme, Aworis are there in the coastal areas. But Ijebu, Remo people particularly, they are the ones who dominated the what I might call the hinterland of what's it called, Ikorodu. But all these things happen regardless of who is earlier. All accounts is anonymous that the dominant people of Lagos are the earliest settlers in this land. But regardless of who came later or when they came at the same time to those extremes, whether Lekki or Ikorodu, what I'm saying is that the whole idea of Lagos State met all of them there. That's the point I'm making. So the whole idea of Ogun State captured who it captures. So Ijebu people are predominantly captured inside the area called Ogun State today, while the Aworis are predominantly captured inside the place called Lagos State. Even though some non-Awori groups are still in that place called Lagos State, they were met there by the whole construct of Lagos State. So the same thing. I know some history of Lekki. I have a material. Not that I know it perfect. I have a material, and I can find that to put a timeline to it. But there is no such account that says that maybe anybody came before Aworis. I don't know of any account like that. So the Aworis are the earliest settlers in this part called Lagos State today. But there are other people in some, few parts here and there, somewhere near one extremes, maybe Ikorodu. Not necessarily the same time, maybe they came later. But then the construct of Lagos State met all of them there on that land. So I hope that clarifies some of the confusion.
So thanks for that clarification. That's the point I was also trying to make.
So the whole idea of indigenous people.
So you are from Kosoko's lineage.
Yeah, through my paternal great grandmother, yes.
Oh, okay.
But I have my patrilineal strict patrilineal line, yeah.
So we are indirect cousins then.
Oh yeah, people are just, let me say something about I've said this before. I just want to reiterate it. Most people are unaware that there is a Lagos account of the relationship between Lagos and Benin. We've said this, we've trashed it here. I just want to punch it because I heard you saying something. Relationship between the Lagos people, Aworis, and the Benin people, there are two accounts to it. While the Lagos people have something to say, the Benin people have something to say as well. These two accounts agree for the most part, but there are areas of sharp contrast where the two accounts say something different. And those areas that they are, one, Benin said we named the place called Lagos, and the place called Eko, we named it Eko. The Lagos account said, no, this place has been called Eko, not the whole place. In any case, the whole place called Lagos State today was not the original place called Eko. The original place called Eko, if you want to identify, look at the map of the new construct called Lagos State. Zoom into that map, there is a land inside on an island there. That particular island is the place originally called Eko and originally called Lagos, the Portuguese word. So with time, that name spread to the metropolitan area, the wider area. And then in modern times, in recent times, it spread to the new construct called the state, Lagos State and Eko. So that land, they said this land has had the name, that's the Lagos account now, has had the name Eko before any immigrants came here. The name has been there. That's what the Lagos account says. You can see the contrast between what the Benin said. And they said it was originally called Oko. It is the Ijebus, the neighboring Ijebus, who, called it Eko, but since very early times, before any immigrants came to settle on the land. That's on the name. The second point of disagreement, the Benin account said, we came here and we seized it by force from the people. We conquered it and all those things. Lagos account has something completely different to say. Most people are not aware. Most people think the Lagos account says exactly the same thing in every respect. No. Lagos account said, no, you tried to, even though they were back and forth, they were conflict, but they were beaten back, and they came again with no show of force, and they requested permission to land from the native Aworis, and a piece of land was granted to them. But not only them, different people did the same thing, requested a piece of land, so granted to them. So on that small piece of island, that Ikwarumere, different piece of the land was granted to different people. People who came for the trading in the mid 1500s, they had their area, the Benin had their area, and so on and so forth. So different people had their area on that same island. So that's what the Lagos account had to say. And on the last one, so after these people had lived on that island, Eko Island, even though there was Ido, and there's a king in Ido who was like more or less in this early times the bigger king for that region, for Oto, for that Meta side, and for that Eko, which is opposite Ido Island. So that's the king that controlled that region. So that's the king that controlled that region. So what happened was that when the Benin came to settle and got permission to land, they owned that piece of that island that was granted and conferred to them, just as the Ijebu owned a piece of that island that was conferred to them. So they all moved here, and it's not only Ijebu and Benin, it's the Ijaws as well. It's the Eguns as well. I know Egun in Badagry, but they also came here to this coast to take advantage of the booming European trade in the 1500s. So many people came, but of all these immigrant groups, the Benis were the most populous. So a certain guy, Ashipa, this Ashipa in Benin account is said to be a son or grandson of the Benin king. That's what Benin account says. Lagos account said, no, there is no such thing. Ashipa is an Awori prince, an Awori chief of Ife royal descent from that first Awori settlement called Isheriolosin. He came to the island and he teamed himself with the Benin population, the most dominant one, and the Benin government. What was he trying to do? He had the aspiration of establishing an independent monarchy on that island called Iko, such that that monarchy would be independent of the Oloto, who was then called the Olofin of Idu. Then that proved successful, and there was this tie of patron-protege pact in which he would now make remittances to the Benin government as a token of gratitude forever, even though that later changed. He stopped that sometimes in the 1800s. So that's the first relationship with the Benin, according to the Lagos account. Then the second relationship, according to the Lagos account, is that, there is more to the relationship with Benin than food. The second is the issue of marriage by blood to the then Benin king, after they had settled for a long time. So he married into the family of the then Benin king and had a son called Adu through that woman. So I stated this earlier before. I was just pointing out some things that I noted people were saying. So the relationship between Benin and Lagos is of two faces. The Benin has something to say. The Lagos account has something different, sharply different to say on certain issues. And our worries are not just concentrated in the island. They are spread across where we call Lagos State today. Even beyond Lagos State to Uganda. But Isheri Olofin was the first time setting up. Hope that clarifies that.
All right. Sorry, Yola. Maybe I should just interject here. I listened to Olufemi speak. Olufemi is a Jose. I'm from Royalty as well. And it's interesting. I've had this conversation with our worries, and this lame claim to Lagos, it's really funny. I just got into the room and I saw a man saying, "Oh, I like the point," and that's why I actually came up. We had this discussion in a smaller room. You see, this word has been thrown around, I think the problem we have generally is we have so many intellectual people who are being indigenous, or how do you guys say that word? That have turned stories, just to fit different narratives. I've heard so many. Thank you very much, Iman. I've heard so many, as in so many lines, and you see they create all these blooded lines and all that. And I like the fact that we have somebody from Ikorodu on stage, we have some from the royal family, and you all also, since you're Kosoko, you're part of the royal family. You see, the story of how Lagos, and when people say Lagos, I try to first, talk about the real Lagos, which is not the metropolitan Lagos, Ikeja, all those places, Badagry, Ikorodu, Ekpe, those places are not Lagos. So that's the first point, right? All those catchment areas are not Lagos. Lagos is Lagos Island. Let's first get that fact. Okay? So when you talk about Lagos Island, that place, of course, there are people everywhere in the world before some other people come and conquer them. So the fact that Awuris or some people or Ijesha or Elisha or Ijo or these days ran away from where they are from and they have their own clans there doesn't make them, the custodians of those lands. Yeah, they could find themselves. And don't forget, Lagos wasn't a land where people just settled. They came there to farm and trade. So it wasn't more like, it was like, people were like nomadic those times. So when I'm telling you based on the story, we've heard from our old parents, and I don't know how people have so discredited the lineage of the Ado and all the stories, They just say, oh, maybe this guy was from this place and this place. On account, this guy was buried in Benin. His crown came from Benin. So what are people talking about? The first 3 kings in Lagos were buried in Benin. Which one is it? Ojulari was ordered from Benin to kill himself. He committed suicide and died. So the story of Lagos, you see, is I don't know all these other things you guys are talking about, but is 100% from what I've heard linked to the Benin Kingdom. The Benin Kingdom saw people, yes, they were trading, there were indigenous people there, they took over the land, they went back with mercenaries and all that, yes, they came back,